You're standing in the hallway. The air smells like floor wax and that faint cafeteria smell that never really goes away. Your backpack is heavy against one shoulder, and you can hear the echo of locker doors slamming, voices bouncing off painted cinder block walls. Your locker's down there, third from the end, and you have the combination memorized so well your fingers could do it in the dark. Spin right past 0 twice, land on 14, back left to 32, right again to 6. The metal door swings open, and you are hit with the smell of old gym clothes and pencil shavings. You grab what you need, the math textbook stays, the English binder comes home, and you shove everything else to the bottom. Someone 2 lockers down is talking about weekend plans. Someone else is asking if anyone wants to trade Pokemon cards tomorrow. The teachers are packing up too. You can see them through classroom doorways, erasing whiteboards, stacking papers, moving slower now that we are all gone. Someone is waiting for you by the main doors. The light coming through those glass panels is different now. Softer, afternoon light. The bell rang 3 minutes ago, and the building is already starting to empty. You push through those doors, and the outside air hits your face. If it is winter, it is sharp and cold, the kind that makes your nose run, and your eyes water, and you can see your breath in little clouds. The snow is piled high along the walkway, gray and crusty from boots and salt. If it is spring or fall, the air is just cool, fresh in a way that makes you want to move, to run, to do something. Your friends peel off in different directions. Someone's mom is idling in the pickup lane. Someone else is walking toward the bus loop. You are walking. Always walking. 4 blocks, maybe 5, depending on which route you take. You've got maybe 4 hours before dinner. 4 hours that belong to you. If you grew up in Canada in the late 90s, you know exactly what those hours felt like. This was before your phone told you where to be. Before group chats decided your plans. Before anything moved faster than you did. Life had a rhythm back then, and it was slow enough that you could actually feel it. The day didn't blur. It had sections. Morning, school, after school, dinner, evening, and after school was its own country. You weren't supervised every second. You weren't scheduled into blocks. You were just out, moving through your neighborhood with a kind of freedom that didn't need to be named because everyone had it. After school meant dropping everything by the door. Your backpack would hit the floor in the same spot every day, right next to your shoes, and your mom would ask how school was without looking up from whatever she was doing. You would answer in one word: fine, good, okay. It was not dismissive. It was just understood. School was over. That world was closed. This one was open. You would grab something from the kitchen, maybe a fruit roll-up, maybe some Dunkaroos if your mom had gone to Zeller's that week, and then you had a choice to make, inside or outside, stay or go. If you stayed inside, you knew exactly where you'd end up, on the couch, remote in hand. And this is where the day slowed all the way down. YTV came on at 3:30, and if you timed it right, you caught the tail end of whatever was on Treehouse before the real lineup started. Reboot, Beast Wars, Sailor Moon, The Zone, with those hosts who felt like older kids you wanted to be friends with, Sugar and Snit, Phil and the gang. They weren't trying to teach you anything. They were just there, filling the space between you and dinner. You'd flip channels during commercials, even though you always came back. Global, CBC, CTV, just checking what else was on. But you always came back. The remote had that satisfying click with every button press, and you'd hold it in both hands, elbows on your knees, sitting way too close to the screen. Your mom would walk through and tell you to back up. You're going to wreck your eyes. You'd scoot back 6 inches, wait till she left, then drift forward again without even noticing. The volume had rules. Too loud, and someone would yell from the kitchen. But too quiet, and you couldn't hear it properly, especially if your brother was upstairs, or if someone was running the vacuum. So you'd find the zone, just loud enough. The commercials were half the experience. Creepy crawlers, Skip It. Those honeycomb ads with the weird claymation kids. You weren't just watching, you were absorbing. building a shared language with every other kid in the country who was parked in front of the same glowing screen at the same time. Sometimes nothing good was even on. You'd watch anyway, just for the noise, just for the company, just because it was what you did. Your dad would come home and walk past you without saying anything, and you'd hear him in the kitchen asking what's for dinner, and you'd keep watching, one leg tucked under you, the other foot tapping against the coffee table. And if it wasn't YTV, it was Teletoon. Or maybe you were one of those kids who got home just in time for the Simpsons reruns on Global or CTV, 5 o'clock, every single weekday. You could recite entire episodes. Your parents didn't love it, but they didn't stop it either. It was just part of the routine, part of what kids did. The thing about TV back then was that it was not on demand. You couldn't pause it. You couldn't skip ahead. If you missed it, you missed it. So you shaped your life around it. You came home on time. You sat down. You stayed. There was something weirdly comforting about that. Everyone was watching the same thing, at the same time, with no choice in the matter. It made the world feel smaller, like you were all in on the same joke, even if you'd never met. But some days, you didn't stay inside. Some days, the second you walked through that door, you were already turning around. You'd change fast, swap your school clothes for track pants, a hoodie, whatever, it didn't matter if it got wrecked. Then you were back outside. The neighborhood was full, kids everywhere, on bikes, on rollerblades, standing in the middle of the street with a hockey stick. You didn't text anyone to see if they were free. You just went outside, and if they were there, they were there. If they weren't, you found something else to do. Street hockey was the default. Someone's driveway, someone's cul-de-sac, a net made out of plastic piping, or sometimes just 2 pylons stolen from a construction site down the street. The puck was a ball, orange, scuffed, cracked from being hit so many times it barely even rolled anymore. Picking teams always took longer than it should have. Someone always complained. Someone always got picked last, and everyone pretended not to notice. Then the arguments started, whether that shot counted, whether someone was offside, whether you could use your feet or not. The rules changed depending on who was winning. You'd play until a car came, then someone would yell, "Car," and you'd all shuffle to the side, sticks dragging, waiting for it to pass. Then you'd reset and keep going. In winter, the games were different, slower. The ball didn't bounce right on ice or packed snow. Your hands froze even inside your gloves. Someone would take a slap shot, and the ball would disappear into a snowbank, and you'd all have to stop and dig for it, mitts off, fingers going numb. In the summer, the pavement was warm under your shoes, and you'd play until the sun started to drop and the street glowed orange. Someone's mom would come to the door and yell that dinner was ready, and one by one, kids would peel off. "See you tomorrow." Someone always fell. Scraped knee, elbow. Once in a while, someone would actually get hurt, stick to the face, ankle rolled wrong, but you'd brush it off. Shake it out. Keep playing. No one wanted to be the one who went home crying. Your parents were inside. You could see them sometimes, passing by window, watching, but not really, trusting that you were fine, that the street was safe, that nothing too bad could happen in the 45 minutes between school and dinner, and they were right. Nothing did. You just played. You argued. You laughed. You existed in a world that didn't need them yet. No one kept score, or maybe someone did, but it didn't matter. The game was the point, the movement, the sound of the stick hitting the pavement, the fact that you were doing something. If it wasn't hockey, it was bikes, riding in packs around the neighborhood. No destination, just loops, through the neighborhood, down to the school, around the park, back home. You would ride with no hands to show off. You would hit curbs and try to pop wheelies. Someone always had pegs on their bike, and someone else always wanted to ride. You weren't going anywhere. You were just out, just moving, just burning time in the best possible way. Sometimes the chain would fall off. Sometimes you would lose a ball in a storm drain, and someone would lie on their stomach trying to fish it out with a stick, while everyone else stood around offering useless advice. Maybe for you it was different. Maybe you lived farther out, and after school meant wide streets and longer bike rides. Or maybe you were downtown, and after school meant walking to the corner store with a toonie in your pocket. Maybe your thing was basketball, or skateboarding, even though you were not very good. Maybe you spent those hours in your basement with a stack of PlayStation games and a friend who did not have a memory card, so you had to restart every single time. Everyone's version of this was a little different, but the feeling was the same. That stretch of time that was yours, unsupervised, unstructured, unhurried. And if you had a little money, maybe from shoveling driveways, maybe from your allowance, maybe from birthday cash you had been hoarding, you went to the corner store. Not the big grocery store, the small one, the one with the faded sign, and the guy behind the counter who never smiled, but always knew what you were going to buy. You would walk in, and the bell above the door would jingle. The air inside smelled like dust and newsprint, and something vaguely sweet. You would head straight to the candy aisle. Sour keys, gummy worms, pop rocks, those weird waxy bottles filled with sugar liquid. You would take your time deciding, like it was the most important decision you would make all week. Then you would grab a Slurpee, or a can of clearly Canadian, wild cherry because it was the best one, and you would hand over your coins and leave. The whole trip took maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like an event. A mission. A reason to be out in the world. Some days you did not leave the house, but you also did not watch TV. You just existed in the in-between. You would sit on your bed with a CD case open in your lap, reading the liner notes like they were a novel. Or you would flip through the latest issue of Nintendo Power, even though you'd already read it twice. Or you would call your friend on the landline, stretching the cord into the hallway so your brother would not listen. You would talk about nothing, about something that happened at school, about whether you were allowed to sleep over on Friday, about what you were going to rent from Blockbuster this weekend. The conversation did not need to go anywhere. You just wanted to hear someone's voice, to fill the space. And then there were Fridays. Fridays had a different weight, because after school on a Friday wasn't just a few hours. It was the start of 2 whole days. If your parents were cool, you were allowed to go to the mall. Real independence. You'd meet your friends at the food court. No parents, no plan. Just you and a $20 bill and infinite possibility. But it wasn't as smooth as you'd imagined. There was always that awkward waiting period. You'd get there first and have to stand near the fountain, trying to look like you were doing something, checking your watch even though you didn't really care what time it was. Then your friends would show up, and suddenly you'd feel a little braver, a little more visible. You'd walk around for hours, in and out of stores you couldn't afford. There was a hierarchy to where you went. The cool stores, the okay stores, the stores you only went into ironically. You'd try on clothes you'd never buy, sunglasses, hats. You'd flip through CDs at HMV, checking the prices, putting them back, sitting on the edge of the fountain, tossing pennies and making wishes you'd forget by Monday, sharing fries from New York Fries, buying a smoothie from Booster Juice, even though it cost $7 and you had to skip the arcade to afford it. There was something awkward about the whole thing. You wanted to feel grown up, independent. But you also had to be back at the entrance by 6:30 because someone's mom was picking you up. You'd check the clock above the food court more than you wanted to admit. And there were moments, quiet moments between stores, or when your friends split up and you were walking alone for 30 seconds, where you felt exposed. Like everyone could tell you were just a kid pretending. The mall wasn't about buying things. It was about being somewhere, being seen, being part of something bigger than your living room. But it was also about testing the edges of freedom, seeing how far you could go, how long you could stay, how grown up you could feel before someone reminded you that you still needed a ride home. If you didn't go to the mall, maybe you went to someone's basement, someone whose parents worked late. You'd play GoldenEye until your thumbs hurt. Facility, slappers only, arguments about screen watching. Someone always picked Oddjob and everyone hated them for it. Or you'd put on a movie you'd already seen 100 times, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, Ace Ventura, and recite the lines in unison. The VHS tape had tracking lines because it had been watched so many times. Or you'd just sit there, doing nothing, talking about everything. Time stretched differently down there. You'd look up, and somehow 2 hours had passed. The light coming through the basement windows had changed. It was getting late. You'd have to go soon. But not yet. There was no pressure to be productive. No one was tracking what you did with your time. You were just allowed to be a kid, to be bored, to fill the hours however you wanted. By the time 5:30 rolled around, you were starting to think about heading home. Not because anyone called you, just because you could feel it. Dinner was soon. The light was different. The street was quieter. You would pedal home slowly, or walk with your hands in your pockets, and when you came through the door, the house smelled like whatever your mom was making. Craft dinner, shake and bake, spaghetti, something easy, something warm. You would wash your hands and sit down at the table, and someone would ask what you did after school, and you would shrug and say nothing much. And that was true. You did not do anything much. You did not accomplish anything. You did not optimize or produce or perform. You just lived. You moved through the world at a pace that made sense. You had hours that belonged to you, and you filled them with whatever felt right. TV, friends, bikes, candy, silence. It was not structured. It was not Instagrammable. It was not even particularly memorable in the moment, but it was yours. There is something about that kind of freedom that is hard to explain if you did not have it. It was not reckless. It was not neglectful. It was just normal. Parents trusted that you would come home. Friends trusted that you would show up. You trusted that the world was small enough and safe enough that nothing too bad could happen between 3:30 and 6. And most of the time, nothing did. You just existed. You just were. You did not know you were supposed to remember it. You did not know it would become the thing you would reach for when you were tired, or stressed, or overwhelmed by how fast everything moves now. You were just a kid killing time waiting for dinner. But somewhere in all that nothing, in all those slow afternoons that bled into each other, you were building something. A version of yourself that knew how to be still, how to be bored, how to find joy in the smallest, most ordinary things. If this brought something back, something you did not realize was still sitting there, waiting, then maybe it is worth holding on to. Not with sadness, not with longing, just with appreciation. For the fact that it happened, that you were there, that for a few years, a few hundred afternoons, the world was slow enough to notice, and you noticed.